Oh, alrighty. Okay. So one of the first things I wanted to go over was basically just the CPI, which, in case no one knows what that is or someone doesn't, that's basically going to be the Consumer Price Index. Okay. And so basically what that is it's a measurement of the real price of things year over year, and over longer periods of time as well. And so why that's important is because that's really what we use to measure inflation, right? So if, let's say a sack of potatoes last year cost $1. This year it's $1.06, $1.06. Then that means things have gotten well, in this case 6.2% more expensive. And so that's really, really important to always pay attention to, especially as we head into crypto, everything being deflationary. People are going to want to start actually storing their wealth in deflationary assets as opposed to some other things. Even stocks, for example, because they're denominated in dollars, are actually subject to that same inflation. So that's like a really, really bullish sentiment. And I just pulled this from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They release a lot of good information. I'll go ahead and, after I finish up with this document here, I'll post it in the whiteboard. That way everyone can go ahead and review it themselves. I'm also going to write down any questions people have. That way that's captured not only in the recording, but also I'm streaming as well, but also in text in case you just want to read everything that kind of
Yeah,
happened.
it's not bad.
Another really important thing to take into account is the real average hourly earnings. So that actually decreased half a point from September to October. So that's kind of crazy actually. That means you're making almost half of 1% less than you were just a month ago, right? If you have an hourly wage, and so that combined with the CPI increasing and all of the talk of deflation, as people start to catch on to that narrative in the coming year, they're really going to start paying a lot more attention to storing their wealth in other ways. And what it makes me super bullish too is that the fact, like this other story uh, down here with AMC accepting crypto as payment, that means that well, I'll go down there, but basically there's going to be a lot more visibility when it comes to cryptocurrency as a whole. But I'll go ahead and talk about the Alex exchange really quick. So the Alex exchange is built with stacks. I'm not sure if anyone is familiar with stacks, but most people know Bitcoin is nothing more than a store of value, just kind of like digital gold. But just recently, there not only was Taproot enabled, but there's already, which is kind of a native smart contract platform on Bitcoin. But for a while, there's been stacks. I think I first heard about them like I want to say it was like 2016 or so. Uh, yeah, give or take a year. And basically, what they enable are smart contracts on Bitcoin. They're kind of like a layer 1.5. And so they're different from like a layer 2 on Ethereum. And so, how we're going to structure this is like, what is this? Why is it important? And how do we profit from this? Right. And so, this is going to basically be the Alex Exchange, like the Uniswap slash Sushi Swap plus Aave on Bitcoin, which is a little weird because, as I said, everyone only knows Bitcoin as like digital gold. You're going to be able to launch tokens on Bitcoin. You're going to be able to lend and borrow, and you're going to be able to yield as well through providing liquidity. This is pretty important because it's going to be competition for Ethereum. It's a completely brand new idea that hasn't been done at scale yet. And so, what that means is that you're early, right? And so, if you start participating and being active with them, you might have some pretty significant yields if everything ends up working out, right? So kind of something to keep on your radar. They just got funded. I think it was $5.8 million, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I think I wrote it here by a firm, a venture fund called White Star Capital. So I went ahead and did some research on them and kind of their history. And so they've funded White Star Capital is pretty innovative actually in their investing approach. They funded Freshly, which is like it's a cooked meal delivery platform, kind of like Blue Apron, but the food's already cooked, so you just have to reheat and eat. I think there's a lot of people doing that, but they're doing pretty well. Freshly's doing 21.4 million in revenue annually, which is pretty good. They also funded Dialogue, which is basically just a telehealth platform similar to like Teladoc, except this is for Canada. They do 63 million in revenue annually, so I'm pretty sure they saw a nice bump as soon as COVID hit. And so these guys, White Star Capital, they're pretty familiar with what's going on macroeconomically, and they seem to be getting into things right at the right time. Especially, I mean, both of these are kind of, I would say, like pandemic plays, right? People at home more, they don't like to cook, so you go ahead and get meals cooked delivered. You don't want to go to the doctor, that's fine. Telehealth. They also invested in Tier Mobility, which is a company. It's basically like Lime, Bird, and rental motorcycles and whatnot, but in Europe. So that's probably why we haven't, if you're in the States, why you haven't heard about them. And so that's kind of just a little bit of context on who White Capital is, who just funded Alex Exchange, which is actually going mainnet on November 28th as of right now. So that's just in under 2 weeks. So like I said, that means they're going to need a lot of liquidity. So they're most likely also going to have their own token. You'll earn rewards in their token, I imagine. And so that's pretty cool. I also imagine that they'll also do.
What?
Go ahead.
So what makes Alex Exchange different from Uniswap and other dexes?
Well, really, the new thing about them is that they're just launching on Bitcoin rather than Ethereum.
Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
so they're like the first ones to really be doing this, and so it's just their that first mover advantage. I think could really give them some lift. And any again like early participants, I imagine not only are going to be able to take advantage of high yields, but if there are any airdrops in the future, right, and you've been playing on their exchange, you might just get some of those. So it might just be worth going in, playing a little bit, whether you make money or not, who cares? You might get an airdrop later, right? So kind of cool.
So the gas fees will be in Bitcoin, or
Yes, yeah, you'll
how
be
would that work?
paying. Well, I believe
Oh wow.
you'll pay the gas in stacks because they're launching on the stacks platform. So, but ultimately, yeah, the because the validators in that sense are the miners, right? And so they get paid out in Bitcoin, but the stacks is just exchanged or swapped for Bitcoin and paid back to the network. I believe I got to double check on that. But either way, the gas will be paid in either stacks or Bitcoin. So again, this is super new. No one is on this at all. It obviously hasn't even launched, and so might be worth something playing on in case you've ever wondered what DeFi might look like on Bitcoin, because it's actually possible. So there's that. So that's pretty big news, actually, guys. Especially like I mentioned, I don't think it'll actually be real extreme competition for Ethereum just because of the network effect behind Ethereum as of now. But I could see it being a viable player in the long run, and certainly White Capital is not full of a bunch of idiots. I'm sure they've done their homework and know some inside stuff that makes them pretty bullish. I imagine they're also with $5.8 million, they're going to be able to do some pretty serious marketing if they have partnerships with like CoinMarketCap, et cetera, et cetera. Can give them a lot of visibility. So ultimately, a pretty bullish play there if you want to go ahead and dive deeper into that. Like I said, I'll be sharing this in case you want to also do some homework on them. But just wanted to share that with everybody, especially this part. How do you profit from it? So go ahead and look for yields, maybe buy some of their token, and you might even qualify for an airdrop in the future. This is just speculation, but I think a really good move for a lot of these new protocols is giving out airdrops in order to draw people into the space. Especially right now, like for example, ENS. If you bought ETH addresses previously, they gave you an airdrop just recently. And so I can imagine having kept 50% of ENS tokens in their treasury that there will be subsequent airdrops because ultimately the idea is to get people into Ethereum. So pretty cool. Moving on. So again, we have